We are now with Baiba Pruse. Baiba, welcome and thank you for accepting the invitation to share your experiences and your knowledge about these crossroads that happen in citizen science. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us about you and your work?
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. And it's actually an honor because I just recently graduated my PhD thesis on citizen science and ethnobotany. So I don't call myself an expert, but I'm definitely very enthusiastic about the field. And my affiliation right now is in Italy. It's Ca' Foscari University in Venice. So it's wonderful to be here. However, my first experience with citizen science was in Latvia, when I was based in Institute for Environmental Solutions. And then where the process of citizen science or the field, I got to know, let's say this. And answering your question, yeah, I've been working with citizen science or citizen science experts for 5-6 years. So I've been learning a lot from them. And recently the citizen science book got published. So I'm lucky to be part of the team a bit as well, but there are many interesting aspects mentioned there.
And you mentioned, so your PhD is in ethnobotany. Can you explain us more about the field of ethnobotany and how is this enriched by the citizen science approach and movement?
It's interesting. I tried also to see in the studies and in discussions with my mentors what is the difference between citizen science and ethnobotany. And if I may say, citizen science is very much factual based. Well, depends on the system or the level of citizen science. As we know, there is a co-creative and contributory and collaborative. So it's how you define it. But if we talk about, let's say, one of the first levels, or the contributory citizen science is very factual, whereas ethnobotany, which is a field about plant uses, most of the times it's about wild plant uses in food or medicine, or as ethnoveterinary. So it's about local ecological knowledge. And this is more observatory in long term. So it's about generations to generations giving the knowledge. So when we talk about citizen science and ethnobotany, this was just recently with my now your good friends from Germany, we started to discuss if we could employ citizen science aspects in ethnobotany. And there are now ideas about it, and we will try to put it in EU citizen science platform as well, to put a discussion on how citizen science can enrich ethnobotany. What does it mean, enrich? Well, one of the things ethnobotany holds is herbarium specimens. And this is where maybe citizen scientists can help to collect more herbarium specimens if this is something of interest for researchers. There are other things about, we take a lot of field notes, and this was especially expressed in one of the newsletters, Plants and People, and one of the Society of Economic Botany newsletter. We stressed this, one of my co-authors as well stressed this idea that we have a lot of field material, which is visual material as well. And maybe citizen scientists, or other researchers, which are also can be citizen scientists, again, how you define it, could have a good use of it, because sometimes we stop with certain research question. And this was stressed in the newsletter with Corey Whitney, where we talked about it exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. Definitely, I would acknowledge Loretta's work and Catherine's work on this particular topic, and Balin Ballas, which also published a study in Palgrove's communication about citizen science and social science and humanities. And this, the tools in social science, how I see it, is also this aspect of getting to know your people who you work with. And this is where social science and social science methods can really help you. the same applies for ethnobotany. We really need to understand who are our interviewees, and this is where we exploit a lot of social science aspects. And interviews is the base as a method, which I can mention here. So, yeah, I mean, I see great benefits of linking these disciplines. So I'm very much in this jumping from disciplines to disciplines and combining them. So I see also. One question I could say is also if citizen science is a discipline, which is also acknowledged in some of the sources, or is citizen science more as a tool? From my personal view, citizen science is not only data gathering, and this is very much trying to acknowledge in my work or in my discussions, that I would foresee that citizen scientists are not only the ones providing data, but they actually are empowered and giving the power sort of that they can come up with questions. And this is where I could advise to look at them, for example, science shops, which are in, for example, TU Berlin Kubus, which is Frank Becker is one of the leaders, or University in Lille, Martin Legris. And they work in science shop mood, which means that people can come with a question, and then they help to link with the right researchers, which can help to answer this question. So, I would really advise also the citizen scientists or the practitioners of citizen science to look at the citizen science not only as a data gathering tool, but more as finding the problems together. However, you can also see, especially nowadays in respect to pandemic, there are a lot of opinions, but I'm not talking about opinions, collecting different opinions and making, let's say, trouble, but it's more about finding solutions together. And this sometimes may sound naive, but I really believe that if there is this facilitation, the middleman, and researcher can also do this function, linking this, let's say there's a problem in municipality with a lake, and we need some information from fishermen or anglers. And this is where this stakeholder group could be the citizen scientists, the guardians of the lake, and they come with an information. So there are different ways how you can, I mean, I went a bit off the topic, but I think this collaboration and citizen science is very much in line. And the same with ethnobotany. And ethnobotany has also different ways. It's also participatory ethnobotany, and where you also tools as photo voices can be exploited, where you actually ask the person to reflect through the visual material answering your question or your question box. Is another tool to look into. Right. Well, here I have two examples, and the later will be about ethnobotany. But the first one I would like to share how I started was actually in working with fishermen, with anglers, where it was a small case, but this really got me into this idea of what the anglers are doing for us, for researchers. And that was a particular project or activity where we wanted to ask anglers to donate fish bone sample. And because sometimes researchers do not catch the big fish in their nets of the special research nets, but the anglers are the ones going after the trophy fish. So there's a way to collaborate on this particular samples. And this was very, very small, but we saw this benefit. And then this is where I drew my interest into more of citizen science, or what it actually is. Mm-hmm. I would say I don't have a lot of practical experience with it. We're working with schools, and I see this as a great way to introduce kids to science. But again, there is a thin line of overexploitation of the time of the teachers and the pupils. So it's something we, as a researchers using or working in citizen science, we also need to look at carefully what do we give back. And this is something I struggle sometimes and thinking of how to actually do it. So also in my experience, I still need to learn about it more. But for ethnobotany and how does it work with local communities, well, there I had great trainers, and I'm now working in the team of the mentor of ethnobotany for me, which is Renata Salkan, and the DJ team here in Kafoskuri. And for me, it started when we did the first expeditions in Latvia. So when we go to the communities and by randomly selecting the houses, and the most interesting are the ones which actually people say don't go there. It's a crazy lady or crazy man living there. So we actually go there. So basically the method is seems to be quite structured, where you go to the person in your talk, and you are very interested in that particular moment, focused on wild plants or plants, or certain link with plants and human relationship with the plants. So all around there are different questions we discuss in order to actually go beyond. And a good example, which I'm quite happy about, is that when we talk about with local communities, we figured out that what type of plants or taxa they're using, and they were actually using some which are called widely distributed ones, or let's say common plants, which we notice around, but we take for granted. And we also based a study on it and successfully published it. But the thing was, what we found out, that we don't have management schemes for these types of taxa, which actually people use. So they are not going to use, let's say, nettle, which is now growing at the highway, even though it's widely distributed. You're not going to collect it really. And so what do we do about this? And actually, I'm quite proud of going further with it, that we are now involving artists to actually make more, not only awareness, but work together with artists to bring the story further. So I'm actually in my work and with the colleagues interested to go beyond and discuss this openly, of how do we, with this knowledge, with the vast amount of knowledge, how do we go further to the policymakers, and what is the task of a researcher? So I think also with the citizen science is, if a citizen scientist comes with a question and there's a co-creation of process, then I guess it's a wonderful story where you bring it until the end, when there is a certain solution, which there is never an end, because then there is adaptive process where you return to the question, if you did it, what did you do good, what not. And so I'm fascinated by going beyond not only the data collection, but say we were lucky because we were approached by curator, and this is going to happen in summer this year, that our artists are drawing a sculpture based on one of our studies, which is about the common plants. And we're going to make a story about it, that about the plant blindness, about plants we don't notice, but also about the widely distributed, we don't have any management status. And
sorry, Baiba, did you say plant blindness?
Yeah, there is also such term where there is, you take it for granted, and I'm still new in it. Yeah, I'm still new in it, but this is definitely an exciting topic to explore further. But adding more on the, if I may say, about the work with artists, we do, for example, just recently there was a call for Environmental History Week in America. And their approach was very nice, saying, can you draw a postcard which is about future and about present, and how this reflects in a postcard. And so we were fascinated by this approach, and we involved artists, of course, to actually draw us the story. And at the other side, we as a researchers make a story, not as scientific, let's say, but based on scientific facts. So it was also quite a big adventure on this respect.
Yeah, that sounds super cool.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. We started 5-6 years ago when this term, as English term, was not introduced. So I was lucky to be with colleagues where we made the first overview of citizen science, a report type, which was funded by Nordic Fund, and we made an overview of what's going on. And we realized that there is a lot of data gathering, which is not a bad thing, but there is a lot of this, let's say, involvement of getting data about it. Let's say, like a bit similar like iNaturalist, where you send picture, and then there's also an expert validating. So these types of natural science activities. But then step by step, and I think by the work of the Institute, and also this topic was introduced in schools and in science and ministry through our work. And we sort of got a lot of discussion about what is citizen science. And nowadays it's also we have the science calendar and everything, and this topic was there. So I was happy to present what is citizen science for the science ministry. And I think it's now really developing, and we can also see that there's lots of calls in the European Union which is about citizen science. So I guess it is a growing field. But again, I really want to encourage to think about what and why do we use citizen science. And citizen science is not only data gathering. So I'm a bit maybe stressing it too much, but I think it's something not to take for granted, though. Why do we want this citizen science, in the first place?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a really a core question, and our public in this case, it's quite new to citizen science, so it's really nice and important that you brought this aspect to the front. And thank you very much, Baiba, for this short but insightful conversation, and I will keep you posted about the development of this training. Thank you very much.
Super. Thank you, Andrea.